Hi, this is Corey Johnston, and today's lesson is going to come from the first chapter of Peter's first epistle, and we're going to take it all the way up till the 12th verse because there's a lot of great stuff in this chapter. I'd like to say everything I'd like to say about each and every verse, but the only way I'm going to do it is if I divide it in half. And so what we're going to cover today kind of establishes a lot of the tone of that which comes after it, that which lies beyond the range of what we'll be covering. And this is the role of suffering into sanctification. So sanctification is the process through which we are regenerated and made blameless and acceptable at the judgment. And our sanctification comes not from us, but from him. But in order to gain that sanctification, we are all called to suffer, because when we model him, when we call ourselves his disciples, we have to embrace the path that he was embraced. If suffering was part of his path, it will be for our path too. And this was especially true in first century northern Turkey, which are the target audience of Peter's epistle as established in the first chapter of the first verse. So this is Peter writing, and in all likelihood he's writing from Rome, because the reference in 5:13, he identifies his place as Babylon. This would have been the recognized lingo of the early Christian authors of Rome itself, because Babylon, and it was all but a ghost town at this point, but the symbolism was understood, cryptic language, to be Rome. So Peter's ministry took him a lot of places. He began in Jerusalem. He was all over with the Master for all 3 years by his side. Then he was in Jerusalem. Then he goes to Joppa and, he's also involved in the Corinthian assembly. We read there was a faction around him, and he was influential at the Antioch assembly. So he goes all these places that we don't even know about. So the target audience, the ones to whom he was writing, were all located in certain regions which correspond to the northern portion of the modern country of Turkey. So the opening verse reads, Peter, an apostle of Yahshua Messiah, to the chosen, strangers of the dispersion in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. So Peter, his name, he is an apostle, not just of anyone, but of the Messiah and Savior, and he's writing to the chosen. Now, the chosen people in the Old Testament would have been understood as the Jews. The new chosen people in the New Testament is the church. So he's using language which would have reminded the Hebrew reader of what they read in Exodus. They were strangers in Egypt, and but they are strangers everywhere they go in the world. We are strange to the world, so wherever we are in the world, we are regarded as strangers and aliens, and we're just passing by to our heavenly homeland, but we are in the world but not of the world while we are in it. And Pontus, Galatia would have been the region where the book of Galatians was directed to, and all these 5 territories would have taken place in the northwestern tip of Asia Minor, the Roman province of Asia Minor, which is the modern country of Turkey. According to the foreknowledge of Yahweh the Father, sacred by the Ruah unto obedience, and sprinkling of the blood of Yahshua Messiah, grace and peace be increased to you. So the chosen, which he alludes to in the verse which comes before it, are chosen according to the foreknowledge. That means before the foundation of the earth, he chose us. We were chosen by the Father. His election of us antedates our election of his and initiates our response. And the salvific process is really a chain reaction which involves all 3 members of the triune deity known as Elohim. So the Ruah instills in us the spirit of obedience. We are not saved because we obey because we are saved. Obedience is the fruit of our salvation, not the condition thereof. And the blood which makes it all possible was that which was spread by the Messiah for our behalfs at the behest of the Father, and through that there is grace and peace that can be offered us, and this grace and peace can comfort us as we go through trials, much as the immediate audience was. there was no official persecution as of yet, but they were all already being ostracized from society as these strangers and pilgrims walking among them, these people who didn't really belong, and they were ostracized in all quarters of society because of it, and their dilemma is pretty much our own in 21st century. You know, there's no official persecution as of yet, although there are items on the table. Heads up, the erroneously named Equality Act is one of the ways they're trying to unleash the tribulation ultimately. But the third verse reads, "Blessed be Elohim and Father of our Master Yahshua Messiah, who according to his great compassion has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Yahshua Messiah from the dead." So he's giving thanks and praise to the Father of the Master, who it was part of his mercy and his compassion and love to allow us to become born again in his name and through his power, and unto him his nature becomes our nature. And the born again experience is absolutely essential both for salvation and conversion. I'm convinced that there is no authentic conversion outside of the born again experience. You're either born again, you're either a born again Christian, or you're just not a Christian. There's really no other way. Every one of us underwent a born again experience, which resulted in a death to self. That's when we terminated the old sin nature and its appetites and inclinations and orientations, and we accepted his nature, and his heart became our heart. We became redeemed unto his name and through his power. And the living hope is, our hope is living. Our hope is unto life. It is resurrection, which is life after death. So our hope is rooted in life, and it is like, if there is life to our hope, then we will have hope in the life. So hope is key to it all, and it's in the resurrection, the first fruit of the resurrection from the dead, which was Yahweh Messiah, which he generously shares with us, who have no other means of inheriting the resurrected form, as our bodies in their sin-stained condition could not be regenerated without the appropriation of his. To an inheritance uncorruptible and undefiled and unfading, having been kept in the heavens for you. So this inheritance, this is eternal salvation, which is the inheritance, and it is incorruptible. It cannot be physically corruptible. The treasures of heaven do not decay or rust or are not eaten by moth, or in any case or in any way diminished, and it's unfading, and it's all for you. It's been kept in heaven for you. So this is the gift of heaven. You have to get to heaven in order to get it. What do? And suffering is part of the path to sanctification. So this suffering you're going through, it's all going to be worth it. Because who are protected by the power of Elohim through faith for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time. So the two elements there is the power of Elohim and faith. These we cannot access the power apart from faith, and the power refines itself through the protection of our faith. So he knows we're surrounded by enemies, and there's all those around us who want us to trip and fall and to forsake the name and the calling of our path. There's no shortage of those types out there, but when we are protected by the protected hand of the Almighty, then no weapon formed against us can prosper. That's somewhere in Isaiah. And no enemy, no matter how many armies or how large the giant, can triumph over us if we have faith. So faith is a power of principle and action, and the salvation will be revealed to us in the last time. We have descriptions and sort of teasers and appetizers and fillers of what it will be up like now. We can experience eternity in the present moment, but not as fully as we will when we are resurrected in eternally itself. In which you exult, even though for a little while, if need be, you have been grieved by manifold trials. So these trials they're undergoing, he knows they're going through it. The Messiah knows they're going through it because he goes it through with them. But it's temporary and it's temporal. And what you're enduring them for is something that is beyond yourself, that is something that is eternal, that is something you cannot get apart from him who paved the way. So follow the path and the way that he paved. and thankfully the victory is already ours. But so this pain shall pass, whatever you're going through, whatever dilemma, whatever internal controversy you have haunting you in your head right now, it too shall pass. And one day we'll be redeemed and resurrected, where there will be no tear shed or cause for mourning or grief or anything like that in the new heaven and the new earth. In order that the proving of your faith, much more precious than gold that perishes and proven by fire, might be found to result in praise and respect and esteem at the revelation of Yahshua Messiah. So our faith is a refining process likened to the furnace of affliction. Affliction is necessary to test our faith, because it's easy to forsake the faith once we pay a price of pain for it. That refines our faith and ultimately enables us to be. Our faith is very much measured by how much we are willing to endure for its sake, to pay the price of the penalty of the pain. And elsewhere in this book, in the 4th chapter, I believe he writes, "Consider it not strange when all manners of affliction and persecution shall visit you." So this is the consequence of living the way in the world. When the world and the way are at war, the world is going to be out to get us, but we still have to express the esteem of the revelation of Yahweh, Yahshua Messiah, in all that we are and all that we do, no matter the circumstances or occasions or any other potential excuses. Whom having not seen you love, in whom you exult with unspeakable and esteemed joy, in not seeing but believing. So the object of our faith is someone we cannot see. Peter had seen him, and he was giving his testimony that this man was all the things that he said he was. He was resurrected for a period of 40 days. He did walk the earth. He did descend from eternity in heaven. But they had no sight of him, and neither do we. But this reminds us of the lesson of the doubting Thomas in John's 20th chapter. Blessed are those who believe without seeing versus those who need to believe to see. So we accept the apostolic testimony as reliable, honest, and accurate because their moral character, they were willing to pay the price of the cross. Peter was, according to legend, crucified upside down, as he did not deem himself to be worthy to be put to death in like manner as the one he called Master. But where was I? Obtaining the goal of your faith, a salvation of lives. So this is what it's all for. This is what we're going for. This is what we endure and abide and just endure. And it's the price we pay for the object of our faith, the goal of our faith. It's all about salvation, eternal salvation. It is life after death, life without end. So we're willing to pay the price of persecution and pain and suffering with that blessed expectation in mind. Concerning this salvation, the priests have sought out and searched out prophets concerning the grace for you. So the secret, the full revelation and manifestation and meaning and reality of salvation as was given to the New Covenant Christians was something beyond that which the priests and the prophets of the Old Testaments knew about. The priests were kind of just the mechanical minders of the store, but the prophets had visions and revelations of these things to come that they didn't even fully understand themselves, because prophecy can only be fully understood once its promises is fulfilled, yet they recorded it faithfully. And we're indebted to them for much of our understanding of the one they called Messiah. Searching to know what sort of time the Spirit was in them, was pointing out concerning Messiah, when it was bearing witness beforehand the sufferings of Messiah, and the esteems that would follow. So the Ruah, the Spirit, was the one who animated and inspired the writers of sacred writ. These are the prophets. These are the written prophets. There are certainly spoken prophets. Those number in about the 3 digits, whereas the written prophets are about 13, 15 individuals, give or take. But the point is they were all guided by the Spirit, as was the Son. And the Spirit points to the Messiah. That's one of the things that the Spirit of truth does. He reminds them of the revelation they had earlier received from him. So the Spirit of the Messiah and the Spirit are not one and the same, but they are singular in essence and united in purpose, and if not being. And, the suffering was part of the path. It was part of the calling. So whatever they're suffering now, he's suffering with them. And he is our great sympathetic high priest who became the sacrifice for us, as well as points to the path. To whom it was revealed that they were serving not themselves, but you, in these, which now have been announced to you through those who brought the good news to you by the Ruach Kadesh sent from the heavens, into which angels long to look into. So Peter has an accurate estimation of himself, because he is the depositor of this news, this revelation, this mystery that the prophets could not see or hold or understand or be privy to, and he's giving it to them, and by connection us. And so we just want to get the idea that he does know what he's talking about, and his revelation is true, his revelation is genuine, his revelation is accurate. So just to cap it in the capstone of the book itself, remember I explained my summary or perspective of the projection of 1 Peter is the sanctification onto suffering, and there's a few passages that we covered that speak of that, but that's generally the message that's going to be communicated throughout this book. But that's all the time we have for today. We'll pick this up sometime soon. We'll cover it from verses 13 through 25. That's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you soon. Take care until then. Bye-bye.